Alright, we've got the Pathfinder and we have started doing body work on the doors. This door was going to be the worst out of all of it. Well, the back of the Pathfinder is going to suck, but that door was definitely one of the worst parts. This door is going to be a lot easier. I've got them both in here, and this is the fairly easy door. I have a spot here and here, a couple little door dings, not much. I've worked some of this out from the inside. I had a ding here that I have massaged some with some body hammers. It's closer, just little stuff. A little dent right there, you can catch it in the light. And where I've welded, of course, being body dropped, I had to cut all of the factory stuff out right here and notch this out with a trailer fender, and welding all this back together caused a little bit of warping and things. It's not terrible. There was a dent right here that I pushed out from the inside. There was a dent somewhere over here that I pushed out from the inside, but nothing real bad. This was the bad door, and it's actually coming out fairly good. So I'm in the process of sanding this, and this was not really a dent there. The way that it was shaped from the factory had a little concave, not really anything at all. My sanding block was touching here and barely touching here, so I just put a skim coat of body filler, basically kind of like this side, only just a hair worse. So high fill primer will take out pretty much what I had there, but I thought a skim coat would help it. So I put in my first coat of filler and knocked it down with my DA that I can't seem to locate. Here it is. 36 grit on the DA, and knocked it down. And then I put a second coat and I knocked it down. I should have continued to use 36 grit, but I used this 80 grit on really kind of too long of a block. But it was getting really smooth, so I went ahead and put in a third coat, and I'm sanding it with more of a squishy block and trying to get my shape right, basically where it curves right here. You can see it on this door better because this one is still in paint and you can see shiny things better. So right there where it curves is what I'm trying to form on this door currently. And it's kind of coming out. So I'm going to have to get my long block and come back out here and work this out, feather it down, and up here feather it, and into this I need to feather that out. I've got some longer blocks. I use this one for my body line on the hard body. It fits in that body line pretty good right there, and you can just try to hold it at the right angle and sand once you get paper on there, of course. And this round block, I can go up in here if I need to, and it will bend to the shape. And I've got this block too. It bends real easy. This is really what I use for wet sanding, but if I need to use it, I will. This spot is more flat, so I can use a longer block on that to get it really flat. So I don't really feel like doing anything at all. I'm having to force myself to do this. Something's going on with me right now. Sick or something, I don't know. Anyway, I am going to sand some more on this. Alright, so I got, like maybe 4 coats of body filler on the front, and it smoothed right out. I don't do this for a living, so I'm going to say it's probably the equipment that I was using. The blocks and the Orion body filler. Ended up, I used this premium body filler, and I like it better than the anti-corrosion. The premium, it did wonderful. So I didn't even have to use a finishing putty on top. It smoothed right out. I flipped it over and I used a red Scotch-Brite pad on the backside just to scuff all of this up. So at this point I am going to blow this off with air, and then I'm going to blow my shop out, and then I'm going to mix up some epoxy primer. It will take 30 minutes of induction time if I can locate it. I think they call it induction time. You have to let it sit. You mix the hardener and everything, you mix it up good, and you let it sit for 30 minutes basically before you spray it. And I will filter that before I put it in my gun. I'm going to use a gun with a 2.5 tip so that I do not have to thin this. And this, I don't know what brand this is. I got it off of eBay. So did some research. They said this was a good one, and I am pleased with it as well. And I am going to tape off basically just some of this, and then I will spray the epoxy. I'm going to use a wax and grease remover, wipe that down while the induction time is kicking. And I was looking for that. I'll set that over here with my other random parts. Alright, and then after I wipe this off with the wax and grease remover, I will, after 30 minutes, spray the back side of this, and then I will flip this over, and most likely whenever I flip this over I will damage the primer. But I don't really see, unless I hang this up somehow, I don't see any way around that. But this primer takes 4 or 5 days to cure, so I really don't want to have to wait. I might end up having to wait. I don't know. I'll think about that as I mix everything up. And I missed a little spot right here. Water might come in there. I will see if I can fill that hole. Alright, and actually, I don't have to fill that hole right now because it's just epoxy primer. So, alright, I'll cut you back on in a minute. I've got my primer mixed up. I'm just going to cover this because I'm fixing to blow my floor. My shop floor got Bondo in it, on it, whatever. So I decided to hang the door. That way it can sit here for however long. The plan is, today's Saturday, I'm off tomorrow, so I'm going to try to knock this door out tomorrow, and I'll just tape this up and spray this wax and grease remover and spray it, and then it's pretty smooth really. So I was tempted to throw this door away because of this area was terrible. I had to weld all of this in on the inside, and whenever I did, I welded it in wrong, and I cut it back out, and then I welded it back in correctly. And by doing that, this was insane. And I actually fixed it with multiple interruptions today. I fixed it very easily. I did not feel like doing anything today, and I just decided to come out here and attempt to do something. Now, once I get the primer on and it is shiny, I will actually see what imperfections that I have left, and hopefully the imperfections will be minor enough to where hopefully high fill primer will fill that. But if not, this epoxy, you can apply body filler back on the epoxy, and that's kind of what it's designed for. So we'll see what it looks like here in just a minute. So here is the back side of the door. It looks really, really nice. This primer smooths out so good. And I tried to spray all up in here just so I wouldn't have any bare metal. I've got multiple coats, 4 maybe, but that dude is smooth. And got that smoother than factory on this side. You can see it's not perfect. There's a little dimple. High fill primer should take care of a lot of that. But you look down it, and I'm not really seeing much wrong with it at all. There is a spot right here. See if I can catch the light right there. So high fill primer should take care of that. And I body worked the very bottom right here. It looks pretty good. Oh yeah, some sand scratches here and there, but like I said, high fill primer will take out a lot of this, and this is multiple coats here, so I think we are good to go. I think the blue should work. I don't even have to worry about pearl white. I think the blue will work fine. So tomorrow I can go over how I do this on this door and see if I can make a video out of it. Alright, talk to you later. Alright, this morning I'm going to take some 36 grit paper on my DA, and I'm going to start sanding down a little bit. Right where I see a dent, I'm going to sand that down to bare metal. You can catch those dents in the light. I'm going to sand all of this area down to bare metal, and we will fill in a lot of this and sand out what we do not need. I only see just a few dents. I hit that a little bit probably. Just catch some dents in the light and mainly just scuff the dents down. There's one right here. Alright, so I'll get started with that. Alright, so I have sanded most of this down, and whenever I would find a low spot, I would just dig around and try to get it down to bare metal. I still have to finish all of this, and I was going to show you on the DA, you just hold it just as flat as you can, and the high spots will show. So just like the other door, this is factory. It is dipped. It's like a concave. It's not bad, but I want it straighter than this. You can see I am riding on the outside perimeter. Pretty much all of this black area, riding on that. So I'm going to sand down to bare metal all of this, and I will put a skim coat and try to get that a little bit flatter. And sometimes your paint thickness will just fill in a slight low spot, and that was factory, but like I said, I can get it straighter than factory fairly easy. This right here was a dent, and I'm gonna have to kind of gouge some of this out. And if you are very, very careful, you can use a grinder with a flap disc. This flap disc is about wore out, but I'm okay with that. All I'm doing is removing paint. A wore out one is fine. You don't want to take off any metal. You don't want to gouge this at all. You just want to barely hit that. If you grind this down, just get it down to bare metal. And leaving a little bit of paint is fine, because you will want to come back in with your 40 grit or 36 grit on your DA. Or if you have a roll lock, I've lost my roll lock. It's in here somewhere, but that's what I would be using on this if I could locate that tool. I may just go buy another one, because who knows where it went. It would be really good if I could get the paint out of here, because that is the dent. That is the super low spot. Anyway, when you're sanding, you will find things that your eye could not, and you might as well fix them. So I'm going to go ahead and take the rest of this down to bare metal, get this down to bare metal, and this down to bare metal, and I'll cut you back on. Alright, I just cut off a piece of cardboard. I've got plenty of cardboard, and then you can just take your cream hardener and put your little ribbon across there. I like this body filler. This is the first time I've used it. It's Orion's premium filler. Seems to be really nice. So I'm just going to stir this up. I've got all of my little dents I'm going to fill, and then I'm going to fill all of this, and then a skim coat here, and a little bit up here. It's not really going to take too much. I'll cut you back on. Alright, so there's two sides of this. I should have showed you this before I got this mixed up, because you kind of need to be in a little bit of a hurry. It's all a technique on, and I'm not a professional. I'm just doing this in my backyard here, doing what I can with it. And this gets way better if I'm using two hands. So you can make fun of me all you want. I really don't care. And you just kind of fill in and smooth it out and try to get no gouges or anything like that. If you've put it in correctly with a small dent like this, you can just go over it one time with your sandpaper with a block, and it'll smooth right out. Just like that. This body filler seems like you have a little bit more time than I've been using Rage Ultra. This sands at least as good, maybe a little bit better. But seems like I have just a little bit more time to work. Alright, I'm going to cut you off and get this big dent right here. Alright, now I'm just going to use a blue shop rag and wipe off my tools so that I can continue to use them. And if these get really built up, you can take lacquer thinner. Wax and grease remover kind of works, but if it's really built up, lacquer thinner takes this off real good. Let it soak for just 30 seconds and it will just kind of wipe off. So keep that in mind. I'm going to recap my deal here. I'm trying to get this before church today. It's about 9 o'clock. It's about time to quit. I don't think I'm going to sand anymore. I know I'm not going to apply any more filler today, or this morning. I'll just clean my tools up, go get ready. So anyway, that's what we've got. I'll just come back and try to hit this a little bit with some sandpaper a little bit later today. And while it's still wet, you can come back and kind of clean this area up. And it's best probably to use a shop towel. And especially around where you really don't want to sand, just got to clean that up. And around in here. And that will be okay. I can sand some of this and get it a little bit smoother maybe. I just don't want a big pile of it right there. Alright, so I guess I'll cut you back on later. After sanding the first coat that I applied, this door is really straight all in through here and all in through here. It is basically ready for primer everywhere except the big dent where I had been welding. So I'm going to, that's fine right there. I'm going to try to apply a very thin coat here and then thicker where it's obviously got some low spots and in the body line. So basically just that, and then I'll cut you back on. Alright, so I have sanded the second coat, and you can see that I've sanded down into the first coat. That's perfectly fine, and that normally would mean, unless you've done it wrong, that that would be a little high spot. And around my edges I have some little nibs that I'm going to try to take care of. So I'm going to fill all the way around here with a very, very thin coat, and then I will sand that with probably maybe some 180. I may hit it real lightly with 80 and then step up to 180 and just get that really smooth. Alright, I am knocking down all of the high spots. Once I get the high spots down, then I will go to a softer grit sandpaper. I've really plugged this one up. It wasn't quite ready yet. I went ahead and did a few things, took out the trash and did some stuff, but it still wasn't quite ready. So I went to this that I had sitting here. It is 36 grit. I'm just going to knock off some of these high spots and around the edges with a little bit, and then I'll get some more 80 grit, work my way up. Just mainly I'm trying to keep some sand scratches out. Sand scratches will require an extra layer of primer and blocking to remove, so try to keep that at a minimum. Alright, I'll cut you back on. Alright, I've sanded that down. I've used this squishy block with 180, and I've got this really smooth. There is a couple of imperfections right here, so I'm going to, right here, that actually doesn't feel like anything. You can see it, you just can't feel it. With that, I'm gonna have to do something about that. So the rest of it is really nice. And a long time ago, somebody told them that whenever you're sanding body filler, to sand until you think it's almost good enough and then quit, because once you put primer in and then sand your primer with a block, it will fill in all of the rest of the imperfections. So I've kind of taken that to heart whenever I'm doing this. You think you've almost got it right, you just stop. And usually it turns out pretty good. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm gonna get what we could use is, hold on. If I had a whole lot to fill, I would use this finishing putty. That smooths out super nice. This is flexible for rubber bumpers if you get a rock chip and a rubber bumper. But that little bitty tiny spot, I'm just going to use this. You don't have to harden this or anything. You can just fill the little bitty tiny spot with it. And it really doesn't even hardly require any sanding at all. So on your spreader, this one's kind of getting wore out, but one side will be rounded and one side will be kind of flat. So what I'll do, this is kind of way too big for this. There's smaller ones that you can get, but I'm going to take the rounded edge and just kind of push that down into those cracks right there. I don't think I was videoing that at all. I was kind of concentrating on what I was doing. But you can see right here how it filled that in. And I will give that 10-15 minutes, and I will come back and sand that with probably 180. Sometimes these edges get some little spots on them. That should work out really good. I think I did a terrible job video on that, but I'll show you in just a few minutes. That will kind of it will change colors slightly, and then it'll be ready to sand. I'm gonna hit this edge right here a little bit, get that a little bit smoother. You can see how this is changing color, so the darker is still a little bit wet. I'm gonna give that another few minutes. The edge feels really smooth now. We're almost done. Alright, while I'm waiting on all of that to cure out, I can take my red Scotch-Brite and I can go over some of the areas that need to be scuffed up a little bit for some primer. And after lunch, I'm going to come out here, kind of let this Bondo kind of vapor out a little bit. And I will come out here, and this door that we sprayed yesterday, I can still kind of leave fingerprint, but it should be good enough. You have to really press down to leave a fingerprint. So I'm gonna take this door down and set it over here, and I will hang this door up and scuff the back side of it and get it prepped. That right there is what happens if you're not super careful with the grinder. You will leave indentions like that. That is not good. That's going to take some high fill primer to get out. That's what happens whenever you get a little bit impatient. That's not really bad. I've seen it way worse. I worked on a vehicle that was way worse. I dug down and somebody had really gouged it hard. So be careful not to do that. That will cause a lot of heartache. Take you forever to get some of that stuff like that fixed. And I'm just gonna scuff around a little bit. I'll cut you back on. Alright, I scuffed this down with 180 and it is really smooth now. I'm going to go ahead and flip it over and start scuffing the back side with this red Scotch-Brite. So now I just have to play that wait game again. Just sit here and stir this and then wait 30 minutes. Alright, and it is Sunday, like April 30th, 3:40. So at 10 after 4, I can strain my paint into my gun, and then I can spray this door. And I don't expect all these sand scratches to come out. The primer, high fill primer, will take care of the rest of those. I've got my other door over here hanging out. So, alright, I'll cut you back on in just a little bit. I got my paint strainer and I have strained out all of the trash, I hope. And throw that in the trash. We are ready to spray now. This paint's super thick. This gun works really good. And I will turn my fan on. My exhaust fans are up here, and I will open my garage door on this wall and really pull all the fumes out. I should wear a mask. I generally don't wear a mask, but whatever. So, kick on my compressor. And I will start spraying, and I'll show you what I got. I'm going to use some lacquer thinner to clean my gun up. Just make sure that gets super clean. I usually rinse this like 3 times. Just pour a little bit in here. If I can do this one-handed, then I'm doing pretty good, right? Yep, I'll pause you. Alright, I got a little bit of thinner in there. Now I'm just going to kind of shake this up just a little bit, and then kind of let that flow out. Once it starts kind of flowing, you can hook air pressure up to this too and kind of blow it out, which I might need to do. It's pretty thick stuff. I'll just do this until it looks kind of clear, usually 3 times, just a little bit each time, not to waste this stuff. There it comes. This is good for the grass, really. Not really. Alright, pretty much just do that a few times. I'll catch you back on. And there is our door. I really don't see much of anything wrong with this thing. It is going to be so easy. So there you go. I got both back doors pretty much done. Well, in about 5 days, I can start scuffing on these, and this one actually has some sand scratches and a couple of minor imperfections. I just left a fingerprint right there, so it's not ready yet at all, but there is some sand scratches. It's pretty deep. I'll have to get that out, but pretty much the doors are repaired. So there's that, and if you want to see more of this build, I will keep on making these videos. Alright, I'll catch you next time.